What is the scummiest thing a teacher has ever done to you? 3rd grade teacher threw several parties during the year. Sent a note home telling everyone what to bring in. Then later would say there wasn't time. Or we didn't deserve the party and take all the stuff home with her. It was many years before I realized how wrong that was. Edit, clarity. That is pretty messed up. If it was actually as you describe. As a kid. Your thought process probably wouldn't extend past being disappointed and the ulterior motives of the teacher would go unnoticed. 10th grade science class. Teacher poses a question in lecture. A species of bird always eats dirt from a specific cliff prior to eating the fruit of a type of tree. Why? A couple students gave answers about roughage and flavor. I says that there may be a chemical in the dirt which offsets a poison in the fruit. I was told to get out to the hallway. Teacher comes out demanding to know who told me. That question was not supposed to be answerable, I suppose. He had planned to spend a couple classes on the subject before revealing the answer and how the scientists arrived at it. He tried to get me suspended. Given the elements mentioned, it seemed the only logical conclusion. This was one of the contributing factors to me hating school. I spent a year living with my grandmother. I was tested and put in a gifted and talented program where I attended a regular school half of the month and my GT class the other half. While my GT class was writing a book on the Russian settlement of Alaska, I missed my regular school long division exercise. Then there was a family crisis and I had to move back in with my parents in another state. My new math teacher refused to teach me. She said I should not have been wasting my time taking stupid classes, and since I didn't care to learn, she would not teach me. My step-aunt was her BFF and told her to keep a close eye on me because I was a sicko pervert who looked at dirty pictures. She went through my book bag and saw a book on Roman sculpture. For the rest of the year I was branded a stupid, perverted troublemaker. I was only 10 and I didn't understand what I did wrong. That pretty much set the tone for the rest of my school years. I went from a very overachieving kid to one who baffled teachers because I was such an underachiever despite the potential I showed. Edit, wow. Thanks for the gold. It's really appreciated. I made a tornado chamber in my freshman year of high school for a project. It was by far the best in-class demonstration anyone had made and was fun to play with. I left it in a media room for my teacher to use to demonstrate and gave me full credit for building it. After he was done using it, he told me I could take it home, but it was stolen by another teacher before I could take it home. The teacher rubbed my marker name off of it and used it in her class, taking full credit for something she built. I eventually got it back, but the other teacher clung to her lie and insisted it was hers. I got 100% on my math homework in grade 7. He made the whole class stand up and clap for me at the end of the class and was purely sarcastic towards me. My English teacher in 8th grade wouldn't give out 100s on essays or even spelling quizzes because only God is perfect. Yes, this was a private Catholic school. Yes, I was pissed off. I spelled all the words right, you old bag. That's 100% correct. Drafting teacher hated me. Picked on me. Pointed me out regularly. Derided me. Not oppressively. But it was obvious to everyone in the class that I was the one he wished wasn't there. Finally, about 3/4 through the school year, he finally asked me what he'd been wanting to ask me the whole time. Why are you taking drafting in the first place? You just want to be a professional violinist. I was dumbstruck. I played violin and stand-up bass, but I wasn't fooled into believing I could ever be a professional at either. When I asked him where he got that idea, he told me that I'd said so on the questionnaire he passed out at the start of the year. I told him I'd never said such a thing, and that he should reread the form. He puffed up, yelled something about how he'd do just that. He stomped into his office, jerked open his filing cabinet, pulled out a paper and read it for a moment. He then slammed his office door and we didn't see him for the rest of class. I won. I failed a paper because the teacher told me my opinion was wrong. We were doing an essay on Stalin and authoritarianism and I decided to try to defend authoritarianism for a challenge. And while the resultant paper was not the best, it deserved to pass. When I talked to my teacher about the grade, she told me that I couldn't morally justify authoritarianism in any way. No matter what justifications I had used, economic, social, etc., and therefore my opinion was wrong. I couldn't do anything about it either, as she was the department head for that subject in my school. I got a C in freshman choir. The worst grade I had ever gotten. And the only comment was "doesn't smile enough." Duck that, teacher. Smiling is part of performing. Performing isn't just the singing portion. Took a class called Industrial Arts in junior high. We built birdhouses, wired simple electrical systems, etc. Male teacher calls me out on the first day, points to me and tells the class that I don't belong there because I'm female, blonde, and left-handed. Gives me a D on all my projects just because and made fun of me daily. Upside, I learned not to take that crap and had the principal walk with me to his office to review the grade. Changed to B. The principal banned me for a week of high school because I was riding my bike without hands. It was right before the finals. Well, now you know you can ride your bike with no handlebars. No handlebars. I hated eating meat growing up. But at lunch you weren't allowed to go outside until you finished your whole plate. In order to get to go to recess I trade all of my meat dish, honestly have no idea what it was, for other students' fries or potatoes. On one particular day I had a really good haul, and my plate was full of everyone's fries. I went to the counter and got a bunch of salt and poured it all over my fries. While doing so the mean teacher came over and said, "Hey, you want to die of a heart attack by the time you're 30? To which I replied, "We all gotta die one day," at which point he whacked me in the back of the head really hard as I clutched a solitary fry in my hand. Everyone got quiet and eventually went to recess. I sat at the table crying, was unable to finish the fries, and couldn't go to recess. This was back in 1988 or so. I imagine it probably wouldn't happen today, or would probably result in a ridiculous lawsuit. My high school art teacher pretty much stated outright in front of the class that males are incapable of creating great art, and that she would never give an 80% or higher grade to any male in the class. Thank goodness she was only there for half the semester, with the other half being a tech design class taught by a different person. In sophomore year, I had a very narcissistic, degrading, and condescending geoscience teacher. Every single day he made everybody's lives hell by yelling at us, not even teaching and only assigning bookwork, and telling everyone how we're going to fail in life if we can't even succeed in his class. I tried to get out several times. After many meetings with both the counselor, principal, vice principals, and him, I never got out. I was stuck in that room all year. I was tolerant up until one day in particular. He told me, "You know, with the grades you have you're never going to amount to anything in life." Mind you, I was an average student. A few A's and B's. Lowest grade I had was a C in his class. I responded with, "Oh really? So you're telling me that with the grades I get I'm going to end up like you? Thanks for the motivation." Totally worth the 3-day suspension and lecture from him I got afterwards. We had a music theory test in band. Yes, we had tests in band. The day after the test, we all went to our cupboards where we normally receive sheet music to get our tests back. Everyone's except mine was there. Everyone did terribly. I noticed the band teacher with a test in his hand. He proceeds to tell the class that we all did horribly, except me. And since I was able to do the test, there would be no grading curve. Thanks for stabbing me in the back, asshole. In 6th grade I was in Catholic school. During religion class we were having a discussion about the Passion of the Christ, which came out the year prior. Everyone was praising the movie, so I raised my hand and said, "MRS. Mahoney, I didn't like Passion of the Christ." She was in shock and asked why I didn't like it. I responded, "The film relied too heavily on the violence." She was so offended that she gave me silent lunch so I could think about why Mel Gibson made that film in the first place. Basically, I got punished for having a negative opinion on a 2-hour snuff film about Jesus Christ. I skipped a grade in elementary school, and my new classmates were bound to not like me for that reason alone. It didn't help that I had a terrible lack of social skills. My teacher organized a game called Stumpful Seprofits where everyone would pull out their dictionary. And each day one person would get to try to find a word in the dictionary that I couldn't define. I don't know. Maybe she thought this would get the other kids interested in learning. But it ended up just whipping them up into an angry mob against me. It really didn't help because she would never intervene. And I would get bullied pretty badly. Not done to me but still scummy. My 5th grade teacher made me stay after class to finish my homework every day, wouldn't do it otherwise, and I overheard her conversation with another teacher. The other teacher mentioned how a student of hers got a perfect grade on her test and so she changed one of his answers to get rid of his perfect grade. I didn't tell anyone at the time because I thought I would get in trouble for eavesdropping. Oops. We had an aide who would monitor the children in my class during lunch. I was sitting with the usual friends I would sit next to. We would do things like share each other's lunch. You know, cheat kids do during lunch. I remember the aide approaching me with a crazed look in her eye, demanding that I return a snack back to my friend. I said, "Oh no." He let me have it. But she refused to believe me. I even pleaded to her to ask my friend. She wouldn't. She asked that I pick up my belongings and go to the principal's office at once. I was floored. I remember telling her that she didn't understand the situation. I sat outside of the principal's office for seemingly an eternity, finally getting called in, only to be berated. I was literally screamed at for 10 minutes. Listening to this man who was even more clueless than the aide go on about how I verbally abused somebody and that I was suspended. He called my mom. And there was no explaining the situation to her. My mother had me clean the entire house that day. Later in the evening, my father took it upon himself to beat my legs bloody with a stick. I'm still bitter about it to this day. Acted nice to me in class. I thought I was doing a great job. Then told my parents during parent-teacher conferences that I was a major troublemaker that was always challenging his authority and that I had serious issues. This made no sense to me. Up until that point he was my favorite teacher. Also, all my other teachers, before and after, said that they really enjoyed having me in class. I really don't know what this teacher had against me. He wasn't my teacher ever. But this one teacher was in charge of organizing various community service projects in my high school. For a particular scholarship I was trying to get, I had to have 25 hours of community service. So I did some stuff here and there through this teacher's group. When it came time to apply and submit my proof of community service, this guy says he lost it all. So I had to do 25 more hours in one weekend. Big dig. Making me serve the community more than I have to. In my middle school I had a rule that at lunch you could only have 8 people at one table. One of the teachers actually made my friend go sit by himself at an empty table because there were 9 of us. When some of us stood up to go with him, she said that it wasn't necessary because now there was only 8 people. My teacher got me kicked out of her creative writing class for writing a short story about a little ghost girl who was lonely and she killed a little boy and her dog so she could have friends. They even called in my probation officer at the time and she put me in anger management classes for being passive aggressive. Apparently I was going to go kill animals and people. Sophomore year chemistry. Test time. Deducted 6 points from a 5-point question. When questioned, stated it was really wrong. I was, and still am, totally flabbergasted by this. That teacher was a special type of itch.